What we're going to do is we're going to go on the potter's wheel. All right. Now picture it like this. You've got a wheel, and Tim, do you remember those old wood turning lathes before you had an electric engine to turn it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, kind of a foot pedal and a rope. You know, your foot pedal, and you'd keep pedaling and it would spin it. Yeah. Well, okay, your potter's wheel was the same idea. The only thing is you had a wheel turned this way, yeah?
Yeah, and that's what they did. Pottery at school.
Oh, okay. So
you push down on the pedal and it keeps going round and round and round.
Yeah, that's it. So now we're going to go to Jeremiah chapter 18 and verses 1 to 6.
The Lord gave another message to Jeremiah. He said, "Go down to the potter's shop and I will speak to you there." So I did as he told me and found the potter working at his wheel. But the jar he was making did not turn out as he had hoped. So he crushed it into a lump of clay again and started over. Then the Lord gave me this message: "O Israel, can I not do to you as this potter has done to his clay? As the clay is in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand."
One more verse, please, Melissa.
"If I announce that a certain nation or kingdom is to be uprooted, torn down, and destroyed."
Okay, now, look at this way. He's got this piece of clay on there, okay, and he's turning it, and notice it doesn't work out. There's an imperfection in it, or something. He made a false maneuver. It's very easy to ruin your clay. I never did turning like that, Tim, but I know it's kind of fiddly. Can you tell me about it?
I made a couple of pots with that. Not pots, they were like oblong square, and they made a lid on the top things. It was like a box, but in clay.
Did it work?
I've still got it somewhere.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah, I've still got. I made. I've still got it somewhere. I gave it to my parents. It was a thing you had to do at the time. This is years ago. I don't think they do pottery at school anymore, do they?
Shame, they should.
I don't think they do.
Because there's four basic types of pottery, and one of them actually comes from the UK. It's called ball pottery. Now, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like your earthen pottery, but it's a thing that's specially from the UK. Stoke-on-Trent does a lot of that. Okay, you know those big chimneys that you see in Staffordshire. They did that kind of stuff. But and there's ceramic, and there's another one. Now clay is a funny thing because there's different grades of it, and also you have to refine it. I didn't know that. I just thought you have clay in the ground, and you know where the clay is in the ground, so you dig up the ground and you do it that way. But that's not exactly it. That's the easiest way, but you still have to refine it. You have to do all kinds of stuff to it. And the ingredients in clay is quite varied. It's not just one thing. And there can be different elements in it, but the basic thing stays the same. Now, in the time of that we're talking about 700 BC or so, I think right up until modern day, we still use clay, first of all. But at that time, it was absolutely essential, okay? Because there are many things that you had to have with your clay. First of all, you had to put water in it. You had to have some kind of receptacle to hold your water. You also had to have something to hold your oil. Oil was exceedingly important in ancient times. Salt was extremely important as well. Salt was every bit as important to them as let's say petrol or electricity is to us. Okay, salt healed, salt seasoned, salt did all kinds of salt cleaned. Now, another thing, you put your grains in there. So basically, all of your storage happened with your pots. So the profession of a potter was a pretty good profession. You had to do, and the ones that did it really well were sought after. Now, even in our language, we have clay in our language. The word sincere comes from clay. Okay, because the word comes from sincere or senza sire, which means when you made your pot, if it was absolutely perfect, you didn't have to use any wax on it to cover up the cracks.
You had to glaze it, didn't you?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
had to glaze it and then put it in the kiln.
But you see what happened?
It would sometimes those pots would crack.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to sell a pot that had a crack in it, but they didn't want you to know it had a crack in it, they would seal it with wax.
Yeah.
And
They used wax and didn't use glaze then.
Well, what happened though is after a period of time, the wax wears away.
Yeah.
And the crack
To
becomes.
show the crack.
Yeah. Almost, Tim, you must remember this. Almost like putting sawdust in the gearbox.
I don't remember that.
Okay, we used to. People used to do that to used cars in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. If you had an old clunker and you didn't want the person buying it to hear the gang of the gearbox, you put sawdust in the gearbox, and for about 500 to 1,000 miles, it'd sound real smooth. But then obviously, the sawdust.
Never knew that.
It would sound beautiful, but then what'll happen is after a little while, it'll start going, it'll start showing that it's a garbage gearbox, you see. So sincere means without wax, okay? And if you were an honest merchant, you didn't use that. Okay, now, the first thing I want us to see is verses 1 and 5 are absolutely key, because when God says, and the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, and the word of the Lord came, and that's verse 5 as well. We as believers, stop everything you're doing. Full stop on everything. Wait. Listen. Note it down. Ponder it over. Ask about it. And if God is speaking, when God speaks to me, I take it extremely seriously. I stop whatever I'm doing. I ponder it. That's what happened with the song. I must have spent 3 or 4 hours, I don't know how long we spent, but we just tinkered around till because God was communicating, and we didn't want to miss anything. And I think we got the essential of what he was talking about there. But now in verses 1 and 5, if God is speaking, and he will, because listen, what kind of a wonderful, loving father would not talk to his children? The only thing we need to do is we need to tune our analogs to the place where he's speaking. He doesn't talk like I'm talking to you now. He has a certain code. He has a certain way of getting through. He also has a code that is particular to you. He has a way of getting across to you that he doesn't use with me. You see, he makes us all very individual and very custom made. And that custom made idea goes across also with how he communicates with us. With me, for example, he will use very few words if he speaks to me in a voice. Very few words, but every single word has amazing weight on it. Or he'll speak to me in the Bible and boom, something will go, whoa, this one's hitting me hard. When you read a scripture and it kind of jumps off the page and you go, oh, God's talking to me here. Or you can be walking around in the street or something and something happens. You go, that's a God moment. I don't know why. I don't know how, but I know that's a God moment. I know he's saying something to me here. So when he is speaking to you, and he will, and he does, stop everything, listen. Nothing is more important. Take your car, pull over into a lay-by. If you're walking around, find a bench. Okay? Now, in verse 2, he tells Jeremiah to go somewhere so that God can illustrate the word spoken by a comparative allegory. God loves to tell stories that we can relate to, okay? So he talks about a potter's wheel. Well, there was a potter probably in every village. So he knew that everybody would understand about that. Jesus talked about farmers. He talked about cattle. He talked about sheep. He talked about crops. He talked about things that everybody would understand. He doesn't give us images where we go, ooh, I've got a clue about that. He'll talk to you about something that reaches into your heart. Now, Jeremiah, he says, he's using this allegory of the potter's wheel. And then in the next verse, we can see that it's simply an ordinary man that's doing an ordinary function. God doesn't do rocket science, although there's no one more capable of it than he is. You see, I mean, like for instance, when this morning, Judy and I read something about washing clay pots or breaking clay pots because you can't wash them, or cleaning metal brass containers. You see, and this is just practical. Now we know that if you have it in a clay pot, it can go into the germs can go into the porous places. So if you have something that's kind of rotten, don't try to fix it. Don't try to clean it. Break it. Get rid of it. Clay, you can't keep it. Okay, because the germs get inside there.
What they were talking about this morning was the sin offering. When somebody wanted to bring an offering before the Lord because they had sinned, they had a burnt offering and they put it into a clay pot to cook it. And then the priest had to eat his portion, and then whatever was left had to be burned and the pot smashed because it represented the rotten
offering.
stuff that
The rotten things
was inside of us.
So now again in verse 3, he tells us about an ordinary man. He talks about farmers. He talks about potters. He talks about things that we can relate to. Now, in verse 4, we have a defective. Sorry, I use the word defectuous. I don't know if it's a real word or not, but a defective product. But notice he doesn't throw it away. Okay. Now, obviously, in this teaching, we are the clay, and he is the potter. So I love the fact that he doesn't throw the clay away. He re-moisturizes it, puts it back on the wheel, and returns it. Okay, and the next one. Okay, the clay is us, and the potter is our Father God. Okay, now in verse 7, then he talks about the fact that can I not do with the clay as I wish? Now, God made me this way. Alethea, he made you your way. Cordelia, Tim, all of us. He made all of us in a different way. I'm not the same as you are. You're not the same as me. I got certain things that I'm pretty gifted at, but I've got some things that you're much better than me at, Tim. That's just humanity, you see. I wouldn't try to do some of the things you're good at, you see, because you're good at it, you see. And he makes us very, very creatively, but he uses absurdity. Now, he says, well, the clay doesn't say to the potter, why do you make me that way? I mean, can you see the clay looking up and saying, hey, you, knock that off. I don't want you to do that to me. Hey, stop turning me this way. Oh, hey, you're bending my arm. Stop this. Hey, leave me alone. No. I want to be smoother on the top. Please. You see, he uses the absurdity of the message sometimes, and it's like sarcasm a little bit, or irony. He makes it extreme, so that the point is driven home well and truly well. We are the clay and he is the potter, and we can't mix up the notions. Now, in all of that, he wants us to be creative. Obviously, we're not a dumb piece of clay, okay? That's not what he's saying here. But what he is saying is that I made you a certain way, and I made you perfectly because I'm God. Okay, and you may find that difficult because you may seem to say to yourself, well, I'm kind of ugly in this way, and I might have pretty bits here, but or I have talents here, or I don't have, I don't know what I'm doing there. We got all kinds of yeses and nos and goods and bads and talented and rubbish at, you see. But that's part of the human condition, and God made us that way.
Also, I think you need to bear in mind that God doesn't make mistakes. So if he has made you, for example, a person who is really, really thin, and that person feels ugly because they're really, really thin, they're that way for a reason. And somewhere along in that person's life, they are going to find out why.
Good. Now, absolutely.
And defectuous actually is a word. I just found it.
Oh, look at that. Come on. Woo-woo. Hey, I like that. Get on it. Let's get real here. We all have depression sometimes. We all have these crisis moments where we don't feel confident, where we feel like we're rubbish, where we feel like we're no good. We all have this. And I can see that I'm hitting a spot there, and I hope so, because the thing that we have to do is realize that what Judy just said, that God doesn't make mistakes, and we need to look at God the way He sees us.
And also, for somebody who's watching there, He puts you where He wants you to be. And if you are in a place where you don't want to be, you need to stop and just say, hang on a minute, Lord, what do you want?
Yeah.
Okay? Because sometimes He sees something just around the corner that you may not yet be aware of. So it may not be an uncomfortable or a nice place for you to be in right now, but there's a reason why you're there. So do not despair if you feel that you're in a rubbish place right now, because there's a reason why you are there. So just hold on there and see what's coming. It's coming. Whatever it is, it's coming.
Now, when we look at what you're worth, because that's where the problem is when we have the crises of confidence, where we're underconfident, where we feel depressed, where we feel like, listen, I get it too, where I don't want to see people because I just feel, I don't know, you know what I mean? We all get our dose. But now look at it this way. Jesus looked at me personally and looked at you personally, and He said, you're to die for. The God of the entire universe, who flung stars up into space, looked at you, Tim, and said, I love you so much, I'm going to go die for you. I'm going to even allow the creation to throw stuff at me and to laugh at me and to mock me and to slap me and to spit on me and to whip me and to tie me up and to nail me onto a cross, and because that's the sacrifice that I need to do so that you can be with me forever. I want to be with you forever.
And if there had never been any other human being in the whole world,
He'd do it for you.
Just for you, He would have done it.
So then He proved it by showing us that the grave couldn't hold Him. 3 days later, here I am. I'm alive. And all you got to do is just ask for me. And I'm right there. I think the key phrase that is important in that new song is, I am the Lord who sees you. You've never left my sight. Till eternity's shore, I'm right by your side. So listen, this doesn't mean that you're never going to have these moments of depression again. I'm not going to play funny boy with you. You are sometimes, and this is a human thing. But what we do have now is we have the facts. We also have the arm of prayer. We have the weapon of prayer. Now, weapon sounds like something where you hurt somebody with, but a weapon is simply something that is also defensive. It's something that keeps you from harm. It protects you. So your prayer, the fact that you can connect instantly with God at any moment, all you got to do is say, Lord, here I am.
There's another thing that you need to bear in mind with our clay pot here. It's not enough just for it to be fashioned on the wheel. What happens next? Tim, you've done it. What happens next after it's on the wheel? What's the next bit?
Okay.
You have to cook it.
Yeah.
Now, what did we talk about last week?
Let him say, yeah, Tim.
Last week we were talking about baking cakes.
Yeah.
It's got to go through the fire.
Yeah, you do. So
The jolly old fire.
Sorry.
I know about the fire.
Sorry, but actually we do need it because it makes us strong, Alethea. It does.
Please, Lord, can you just help me learn whatever it is I'm supposed to be learning, because the fire is really annoying now.
Yeah.
Just help me get it through to me, whatever it is, Lord, because I've had enough.
Good.
That is a good prayer.
Absolutely. And this is why, listen.
Tell me what you want and I'll do it.
Yeah, this is why, Alethea, I don't want to play airy-fairy with you guys. Life gets tough here sometimes. And I think a lot of times people will get up in the pulpit and they'll give you sugar and sweet and everything's nice, but that doesn't correspond to real life. Now, I'm not going to give you hell and damnation because that's not it either. But I am going to say that our eternity is absolutely signed, sealed, and delivered by our faith and our adherence and our trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. And I can tell you one thing, when we get to eternity's shore, it'll be worth it. I know it's going to be worth it. You look back and you go, you know, I thought it was a bit rough back there, but boy, this is so worth it. It is going to be worth it. I know it is. I know it's going to be worth it. And you just have to keep on. And there will be the mountains and the valleys in this life, but it's going to be worth it. There is glory at the end of it. You know, if we go through these trials and we say to ourselves, oh, this is never going to get better. Well, that's not, yeah, I'm not giving you that. But I am saying that there is a sure hope, an absolutely sure hope. But it's going to get rough down here. It is. Listen, I've been attacked savagely. I haven't, go ahead, Melissa.
No, I just had a question. Sorry,
Okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
you.
that's all right. Anyway,
I've heard it being preached before, this passage about that, you know, the whole, you just basically get molded, you know, how it says that basically they had to start again.
Yeah.
And that you get like molded completely. Is that, I know that's not what you've just preached, but actually, do you think that that's true? That actually, when you do become a Christian, that he just like
Scrambles you
Okay.
up. He does scrambles you up.
let me answer.
Yeah.
Let me answer that. This is the way I see that, Melissa. Before we got to know God, we were spinning on this wheel with nobody forming us. With
Right.
bits of clay flying here and flying there and
Right,
smacking
okay.
against the wall, falling off and a mess and broken up and you know, off center, without any kind of center of gravity or anything. We were absolutely a mess. And then once we had faith in God, the hands went on the clay and started molding us into something
Right,
beautiful.
okay.
That's the way I see that.
okay,
Okay. Also, I think it's important to note that the clay that was ruined at the start, he didn't throw it away. Remember, Jesus said, "A bruised reed I will not break."
yeah,
So he doesn't throw it away. He puts it back on. He knows that we're going to blow it sometimes. Okay? But he takes it, puts it back on. Now, what you have to do, you have to re-moisturize it, I think. Tim, is that what you do? You have to cut.
I don't remember now. It's a long time ago.
yeah. You put water on it,
You
don't
put
you?
water on it.
Yeah.
You put green water to keep molding it. Yeah.
Okay, and you have to kind of do it like bread dough, huh? You know, mix it in and stuff. So does that answer your question, Melissa?
Yeah, it does. But I think sometimes, to be totally honest here, in a safe environment, that I get to the point where I just think, start all over again. I made such a hash of my life. Do you know what I mean? Like, that you just want to start all over again. But that's just rubbish condemnation. Do you know what I mean? Like, and for some reason I always go back to this verse in my head about how basically you just put it all together again and start again.
But it's still the same
But
clay.
actually, that's just
Good.
not.
It's still
but
the
that's-
same clay, Melissa. It may need to have the kinks worked out of it, but it's still the same clay.
Right.
And that's what
Yeah.
you got to remember. God doesn't chuck away the clay.
No.
Yeah.
He just takes it and he makes it back the way it was. I had the surgery on my leg. A bit had to come out because that bit was no good.
Yeah.
Okay, was it sore? Yes. You know what? But I'll be grateful for it in time to come because that prevention has actually meant that it has saved me from something that could have been really, really terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is happening there is that the defect is removed so that the part can be the clay part, the same clay is made better.
Yeah.
That's what we got to remember.
Yeah, and also just to help you along with this also, Melissa, I have also had to start over again sometimes. Even as a Christian. I've had to look at things. Oh boy, did I go off the rails there?
You will have seen it in accounts, Melissa. Sometimes you can't find an error, so you have to go back to the beginning and say, okay, trial balance, let's start again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So starting over again. As a matter of fact, that is one of the most exhilarating things about my faith. The fact that I can start all over again. And like you said, and there's no condemnation.
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He just loves you exactly the same.
Exactly.
And he never gives up. He never said, well, Melissa, you kind of blew it too far now. That's enough of you. No more of you. Bye-bye. What? You know, I'd have given up on me a long time ago.
And me.
Hey! I mean, listen, for those of you who've seen me in close quarters, you see my warts. I'm not a perfect man. So I can't play funny boy with you guys. So, anyway, so that's what I got to share with you. How's that?
Very good.
Thank you.